Member for Vieux South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are 2 points that I want to address very quickly. One is procedural. The second has to do with issues of accountability for projects of this kind. Mr. Speaker, I have to credit you with far greater wisdom than I can conceivably have in procedural matters before the House. I mean, that's your area of expertise, and I'm sure you're familiar with all the rules. But I noticed today that the member for Mico North, in presenting the South, in presenting the various resolutions, tend to read the section of the motion that deals with the final resolution itself and not the entire motion. Now, I'm not making an issue of this. You're the Speaker. You give the guidance. Suffice it to say, however, that the motions are supposed to be read into the record of the House for all kinds of reasons. All kinds of reasons. So what should happen is that the entire motion, especially because it's a financial motion, has to be read so that it enters Hansard fully for future references of one kind or another. Because the preambular clauses do have essential information that is critical and crucial and may not be always reflected in the final paragraph. But that's a matter for you, and I am just drawing your attention to this, and hope perhaps during your lunch break you can check the appropriate procedural records to determine whether that's correct. And it is not by any means, by any stretch of the imagination, a criticism, just an anxiety that the historical record is properly accounted for. Mr. Speaker, there can be little question that a motion of this type should draw the approval of the collective opposition today. And there's no doubt that funding of this kind is badly needed for the small business sector. However, I have an issue of accountability. What we heard from the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance was a rather elaborate machinery to create disagreement and to disburse the funds. And it is interesting that the disbursement of those funds have been removed from the governments and entrusted to a regional mechanism. That's my first point and first issue of concern. And from time to time, we have seen, over the passage of time in this House and elsewhere, that we come to the House to secure guarantees for regional funds to be used regionally. But what has really been sorely lacking has been reports from those regional entities as to how they have used those funds. The House is never informed. Neither do you have any idea, for example, when they are charged with using those funds and they go into your various constituencies to do all kind of work, you have no idea what they're doing in there, and they don't even engage parliamentarians so that you have a sense that money you came to the House to approve, that it is being used for the purposes that were intended. Now, of course, I'm not casting any aspersions. I am simply saying that there is a deeper problem of accountability in these matters, that whenever these funds are entrusted to these regional mechanisms, that we do not in turn get the reports. They're not made available to the parliaments. I would love if it is agreed that a report is submitted to the Parliament of St. Lucia regarding the use of those funds and how those funds have actually impacted on the small business sector. So that's the first thing. The second thing I take issue with is the involvement of the Monetary Council. If I heard the Prime Minister correctly, if I heard the member from Mico South, he made reference to the Monetary Council appointing individuals or recommending individuals. This issue really requires some discussion. The Monetary Council should stop getting involved in such matters. That's not a fiscal matter. It's not a monetary matter. The business of the Monetary Council is to handle monetary issues. This constant habit of the Monetary Council to get involved in the administration of matters far removed from monetary issues has to be curtailed and brought to an end. The Monetary Council should spend more time looking at the challenges that the citizens of the Eastern Caribbean face over banking issues. Day by day, St. Lucians are being abused by the banking sector. How many St. Lucians who have checking accounts in banks can't get their checks cashed unless they go to the bank themselves? These are kinds of issues that the Monetary Council should be addressing to protect St. Lucian consumers against banking practices. Nobody is speaking for them. And for years, we have been arguing with the Monetary Council that they have to change their approach. And it's not a question of making statements about economic performance of these islands. It's not just a question of regulating banks through now the very complex legal arrangements. But it is also a question of looking at the issues confronting day-to-day consumers with the banking sector. Now, what are you getting involved in a matter like small business loans by appointing people or getting involved in the administration of such a matter? I don't care about the governor's passion for small business. So his passion cannot and should not translate into getting involved in the administration of such a financial arrangement. There's no need for it. So, Mr. Speaker, there are 2 points in summary. One, I hope we can get reports because we are guaranteeing, and we deserve reports on how this is impacting the small business sector, who are getting the loans, who are making the differences. That's number one. And number two, I think this Monetary Council should be told in clear terms that this is not a monetary matter and it should not get involved in matters of this kind. Pay more attention to the hardship that ordinary consumers are enduring from the banks in St. Lucia and indeed in the region as a whole. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.